globally, we now know that overwork leads to 745,000 deaths a year. And that's a 29% increase since 2000. 3 in 5 employees now report a lack of interest, motivation, and energy. That's a 38% increase since 2019. So even though working conditions are better today than they are in the past, there's no doubt about that. Like, we are in a dramatic regression in terms of overwork and burnouts. And as I say in the book, like, overwork has really bad impacts on the brain. So one of the things it does is it thins the frontal cortex. In the frontal cortex, the part of your brain in the frontal lobe, really important for all your higher faculties like attention, decision making, your memory, all these things. It thins the frontal cortex in the same way that aging does. It literally makes the brain older than it is. And it does that by basically stripping away the dendrites, the neurons like branch-like projections that are really important for connecting with other neurons. And then it does a bunch of other stuff as well in the brain. So like when you overwork, your hippocampus shrinks. That's a region really important for learning and memory. Your amygdala enlarges. That's a region that we know is really important for the fight and flight response. So there's a reason why you feel like anxious and on edge a lot of the time when you're in that state of overwork. And I think a lot of people who, even when they say they really enjoy their work, and that's why they work on the weekends and they work super hard and they hardly take any rest, I think that's why they are often like on edge and feeling anxious. Is one of the main reasons that anxiety levels across the world are skyrocketing, because we're all working too hard. And so I would just say to that person who works super hard on the weekend because they love what they do, that's great, but it's really important to rest the brain. And it's not just about the cognitive benefits of rest, but you also need to think about the really deleterious effects on the brain through overworking. And it's worth mentioning the psychological impact as well, because whenever I talk about the neurological impact of overwork, it's really interesting, but I think a good way to relate to it is also to talk about the psychology. So we know that basically when you overwork, there are basically like these different phases of overwork that lead to burnout. So the first phase is dissatisfaction. So you know that something's like wrong, that with like how much you're working, you feel a bit dissatisfied, but it's like a manageable feeling and you just ignore it, right? But that dissatisfaction then shifts into cynicism. And that's basically where you just don't really care about your job anymore. It's just something you've got to do. You've got to do it to earn the money, to carry on in this system of untrammeled capitalism. So you just do it. But that cynicism, if left unchecked, then moves into what psychologists call a period of dehumanization. And that's like a complete emotional hardening. It's a complete severing of emotions from your colleagues, from your friends. And that is what then leads into these feelings of hopelessness and dread. So you just don't want to go to work or do work, anxiety and depression. And it creates a lingering anxiety and depression. It's really important to say that as well. People who are overworked and at the point of burnout, it's a constant lingering anxiety and depression. You basically wear these feelings like skin, as if they were there all along. And the really interesting thing is that there have been like loads of studies done in Sweden, like longitudinal studies looking at the effects of all this. And they've shown that basically once it sets in, overwork and burnout, it takes up to 3 years for your brain to recover. So for you to return to the baseline, your cognitive baseline in terms of your ability to perform cognitive tasks, it takes up to 3 years depending on like how bad the overwork and the burnout is. So again, the solution to that is, to get away from the executive network, activate your default network with rest in all these different ways. But it's also to try and get the message across to people who, even if they love what they do, that's great. They still shouldn't be working anywhere near as hard as they probably are. Our brain needs so much more rest than we understand. I've spoken to so many people for this book who basically are like workaholics, and they say they're going to try and get more rest and stuff, but you can tell by the mentality, they still view it as a bit of a luxury, something like indulgent, unprincipled, irresponsible, something that they'll fit into their schedule. And that's just the complete reverse needs to happen, because that's the period where all of the cognitive abilities that you have to perform your work really well and be really productive in the long run, that's where it comes from. It comes from your brain, like being more active when you rest. So we need a complete inversion, a complete flip of this false dichotomy between work and rest.
And what does your daily routine look like when you're doing your best to apply those principles and get more rest?
Yeah, so I mean, I used to be like a complete workaholic. So for example, like when I was a postdoc at the University of Washington, I would basically spend my days in the lab doing experiments, mentoring students. And then I would basically finish at about 7 o'clock. And then I would go to a coffee shop and sit down and work on grants or my first book until 10 or 11. And yeah, it was like 12-hour days. I was like completely shattered. But so these days, I basically I work solidly for 5 or 6 hours a day, and I take breaks whenever I need them. So I basically try and break up my day, but with time spent gazing out the window, going for a walk in a nearby park, getting that crucial brain enlarging 30-minute nap, and just like allowing myself time to just do nothing with no guilt. And I think one of the ways that people can shift into that, because it's a learning curve. Like there are some days where I know I work too hard, but I think a good way to think about it is to think, so like each day now, I set a daily goal and I achieve that goal. I think that's a good way to help people shift out of this mindset. Just think, what do I need to achieve today? Just even just one thing, or at most just three things, and then just achieve those goals. And as long as you can achieve that, make sure that you break up your day. Every hour or so, like I will just allow myself 10 minutes to basically just mind wander. I will try and be like, okay, actually, no, can I basically go to the nearby park and just have a little walk? I'm much more intentional about my rest now than I used to be. So yeah, that's my daily routine now. Basically far fewer hours, more deliberate, more intentional rest, and yeah, less productivity guilt.
Yeah. And what I'm learning and what I'm going to be trying to teach younger people and younger teens who want to get into self-improvement, want to maybe start a business or start a podcast and take that kind of alternative route. Obviously, there's some seasons in life when you're just starting where you have to put the hours in to create the thing. But overall, you shouldn't just be waking up at 6 a.m. and then be sat on your laptop until 10 p.m. You should be, like you said, going out on a walk, maybe meditating to just silence, reading, trying to go to the sauna, trying to socialize, stuff like that as well. Because what can end up happening with this kind of self-improvement advice is people take it the wrong way, in the sense that they think they should just be like a slave in their own prison. They've made their own prison and just in there sitting on their laptop. And I've done this. On my rest day from the gym about a day or two ago, it was yesterday actually. See, my brain was fried from this. I couldn't remember what day it was. I just sat in my room and didn't go on the walk to the gym because I didn't need to go to the gym that day. I therefore missed out on that kind of default network. But then I also had a podcast in the evening. So I didn't walk all the way to the sauna and rest in the sauna and steam room and socialize with people. And I remember just going to like Tesco to get some dinner. And I finally felt just so much better after going on that walk. But I knew I just felt so much more tired and just stressed from not doing those daily habits. So yeah, it just makes such a difference, doesn't it? These restful periods.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've nailed it. Like it's when you just ease your foot off the gas and actually just break up your day with those intentional periods of rest. Make sure you have that time to go to the sauna. Make sure you have that time to just go on a nice walk down the road. It's like to Tesco's or whatever it may be. As you said, like people get locked into this rhythm of overwork, and they do that. I think this is certainly the case for me. So I think it's basically like a hangover of the kind of work you had to put in at the beginning in order to achieve a certain thing. Like when I was doing my PhD, I had to work really hard. There were lots of periods of overwork. And then I got the PhD and then like I went on from there, and I still had that mindset, right? That's a hard thing to let go of, because you're like, oh, okay, this is just like the rhythm. This is the routine. I need to keep this level. And if I keep this level, I got the PhD by doing this. I'll get something else great by doing this. And the problem is there's some truth in that, but nowhere near enough truth. There's a lot more truth to resting being the thing that really helps your brain. And the funny thing is as well, you know it. As in, even when I was doing my PhD, there are times where I was just like mucking around with my friends in the lab, having those micro moments of play. There are times where I was just like staring out the window, just thinking, oh crap, I need to carry on with this paper. I've just been staring out the window for 10 minutes. So your brain is still yearning for that rest, that default network activity, because you're in that mindset of this grind is what's producing the results, rather than these periods of rest scattered throughout the day are what is really helping me produce these results. Because it's just so much more tangible, isn't it, to link directly the grind with the work outcome. And that's why people don't break up their day in that way. But as you said, when you started to do that, you felt so much better. And it's the same with me. So like my productivity has gone up. My ability to think more fluidly and clearly has gone up. My writing's got better. Like I'm ill far less often. I sleep a lot better. I just feel much better than I did. And not only do I feel much better than I did, but I'm achieving more in my work than I did before. And so I think it's just it's about basically trying to teach people that it's totally okay to break up your day with all of those restful moments. It's not indulgent. That is the powerhouse of your creativity.